So similarly, when there is a change in terms of the position, like sometimes when the angle of insolation is on Cancer, or when the angle of insolation on Capricorn, accordingly we will have a different seasons. Similarly, when sun is overhead, sun is actually overhead, or let's say making a 90-degree angle on equator, and that 90-degree angle will be on equator during 21st of March, and similarly during 23rd of September. You will have a more clarity. I'll show you one animated video. You will have a more clarity about this. Sun is dynamic. Sun is very dynamic. As you can see that with the previous slide, I told you that during the 21st of June, the angle of insolation is on Tropic of, the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Tropic of Cancer. And during the 22nd of December, the angle of insolation, or let's say overhead sun, was there during the 22nd December on Tropic of Cancer. That means sun is keep on shifting between these tropics or these latitudes, specifically from 23.5 north 0 degree, 23.5 north and 23.5 south. This is being called as what? Tropics. This is being called as what? Tropics or tropical latitude, tropical region. So sun is keep on shifting between these respective latitudes. Sometimes sun will be overhead on 23.5 north, sometimes sun will be overhead on equator during 21st of March. During December, sun will be overhead here. Then again during the September, sun will be overhead on equator. That means what? The angle of insolation is dynamic, and this angle of insolation, which is actually dynamic, it is being known as the dynamism, and this dynamism is restricted in tropics only, between Cancer to Capricorn via equator. This is being known as what? Apparent movement of sun. That it appears to us that the sun is shifting. No, it is not the sun which is shifting. It is basically the earth which is actually shifting. It is basically the tilt of our earth. It is basically the latitude on our earth's surface. Because of that, the angle of insolation is changing, and as the angle of insolation is changing, the seasons are occurring. So that movement is being called as what? Apparent movement of sun. Sometimes, as I told you, that on 23.5 they will be 90 degree, on equator they will be 90 degree, on Capricorn they will be 90 degree. It's look like that the sun is actually shifting, that sun is actually moving, but it is not the sun who is moving. It is the earth, it is the revolution, it is the rotation, it is the latitude, it is the tilt, because of which it appears to us that now the sun is shifting. So that is being called as what? Apparent movement of sun. It is not the sun who is shifting, it is the orientation of earth which is actually shifting with respect to the sun. So sun rays, angle of insolation is different on the different latitudes. This resulted into the seasons on our earth surface. Let's have a quick overview on the seasonal context, specifically with respect to the timeline context. So here you can see that one particular episode, there is one particular event, and during that one particular event, what is happening, that the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Tropic of Cancer. So on 23.5 and north, so on 23.5 north Tropic of Cancer, when the angle of insolation is 90 degree, that actually resulted into summer in Northern Hemisphere, contrastingly different winter in Southern Hemisphere. And this episode is actually being observed on 21st of June. This marked what? Summer in Northern Hemisphere. Means if you have an angle of insolation which is 90 degree, or if you have a slanted angle, so I told you that in the slanted angle the energy will be distributed on a more area. That's why less heating will be there. When it comes to the more vertical angle, there will be a more heating, there will be a summer. So here during this time period we have what? This 90 degree insolation, overhead sun is there. So that marks what? Summer in Northern Hemisphere and winter in Southern Hemisphere. Okay, now you might be thinking that at a given point of time, if the angle of insolation is 90 degree on 23.5, so at this particular time period, means on 21st of June, what will be the angle of insolation on equator? It is not 90 degree. It is different because now the sun rays are actually being fall on 23.5 north. Overhead sun is there. Maximum insolation is there. Okay. So it is because of the tilt it is appearing like this. See. Suppose this is what the earth in this way without the tilt. And now if we see the earth with this particular tilt in this way, this is the equator, then here this is what the equator. So instead of this we have an equator like this, and this is what the Tropic of Cancer, this is what the Tropic of Capricorn. So it is because of the tilt it appears to us that the orientation is actually changing. The orientation is actually what? Changing. The orientation is what actually changing. It is somewhat like this. So because of the tilt the appearance is actually completely changing. So because of the tilt, sometimes sun is overhead here, sometimes sun is overhead here, sometimes sun is overhead here. So sun keep on moving between these respective latitudes, and we are talking about a one specific position, that is the summer solstice, when the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Tropic of Cancer. Similarly, when the earth is revolving around the sun, it will attain one more position, and that position will be on 23rd of September. This is being known as equinox. During this period of time there is a 90 degree angle on equator. Now you are thinking that from 21st of June to 23rd of September, is that means that the angle of insolation is keep on shifting on daily basis, or let's say on weekly basis? Yes, it's on week basis, it's on day basis, it is keep on changing. For example, let's say during the July earth will be here, and here the angle of insolation, I mean overhead insolation, will be on 20 degree north. Overhead insolation will be on 20 degree north. Similarly, during August there might be a possibility that the angle of insolation will be on 10 degree north, and during 23rd of September the angle of insolation on equator. So it means the angle of insolation is keep on changing from 23.5 north in between the latitudes to the equator. Yes. So when we have this episode of equinox during 23rd of September, there will be autumn in northern hemisphere and there will be spring in southern hemisphere. Similarly, earth keep on revolving, and when the earth is keep on revolving, we have a one more position, and during this position what is happening, that the southern pole is near to the sun as compared to the northern pole. So due to this we have what? The 90 degree insolation on Tropic of Capricorn. So 23.5 south is receiving maximum insolation. That is resulted into what? Summer in southern hemisphere and winter in northern hemisphere. And this episode is being called as what? Winter solstice. This episode is marking what? Winter in northern hemisphere. So we used to take a reference of winter solstice here. Okay, winter solstice here. Similarly, the earth keep on revolving, and during the 21st of March again the angle of insolation is 90 degree on equator. So when we have an angle of insolation which is 90 degree on equator, again we have a term equinox. There is an equal duration of day and night. We will see this concept of day and night in a while. So this equinox is actually falls on 21st of March. During this time period, overhead angle, or let's say 90 degree angle, vertical sun will be there on equator. This marks spring in northern hemisphere and autumn in southern hemisphere. Then again earth will revolve, and somewhere, especially on 21st of June, we will have an angle of insolation which is what? 90 degree on Tropic of Cancer. It means what? Let me summarize this again for you, that on 23rd sorry, on 21st of June, the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Cancer. Then similarly on 23rd of September, the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Equator. Similarly on 22nd of December, the angle of insolation is 90 degree on Tropic of Capricorn. Similarly again, during 21st of March, the angle of insolation is what? 90 degree. Similarly on 21st of June, the angle of insolation is 90 degree. It means what? That the movement of sun, I mean the angle of insolation, I mean the vertical overhead sun with respect to the latitudes in between the tropical regions, is there throughout the year. Sometimes overhead sun, overhead sun, overhead sun, overhead sun, and like this. So the sun is keep on changing its position from 21st June to September to December, then again March, then again June, then again September, likewise. So this is what a particular cycle in which the one entire revolution is actually taking place. So how it is actually taking place? It is based on the tilt, it is based on the different latitude, it is based on the different angle of insolation. You'll have a more clarity about the angle of insolation. We have one animated like a part, so you will see an animated slide that what actually is the angle of insolation. If you want to know, then you will have a more clarity about this. So here we are stopping this particular concept of season, then we will again recall the concept when we have an animated session, animated slide on this specific part. However, the concept, I hope there is a clarity that when we have a 90 degree insolation, 90 degree angle, accordingly there will be a season. Why is that so? Because overhead sun means maximum sunlight means summer or winter accordingly, and two of these hemispheres will going to reflect the contrastingly different properties. If there is a summer, there will be a winter in southern hemisphere. If there is a summer in southern hemisphere, there will be a winter in northern hemisphere. If there is a spring in northern hemisphere, there will be autumn in southern hemisphere. Similarly, if there is a autumn in northern hemisphere, there will be a spring in southern hemisphere. So this is how the seasons are actually taking place on our Earth's surface with respect to a particular date. So sun, or let's say the angle of insolation, is keep on changing with respect to the day, with respect to the week, with respect to the latitudes, but there is no uniform rate. That's why it is not a science. That's why we are taking geography as a humanities subject. All right, moving